Good morning, folks. We thought I'd just run you through the 00Z model output on my phone here. I can't actually do a recording on the screen on my laptop, so I'll do my best with my phone here. Now, it is looking like an increased chance of some pretty cold conditions into the second week of December. Some frost, some frequent frost, and also the risk of some sleet and snow by day and night through the second week of December. Not 100% at the moment, so don't run away with the idea that this is a definite forecast of snow. What I'm saying is that there is an increased chance. We need to just pay tuned to the shorter term forecast for more details, especially through next week, especially if you forecast to go over high ground for whatever reason, traveling over air high ground. Now, looking at the NAO forecast, this just gives us an idea as to the index of the North Atlantic in terms of the pressure setup. As you can see, we are forecast to head in towards a more neutral, perhaps even a negative NAO phase. Now, there are some ensemble members that remain positive there with the NAO, and that just goes to show that this isn't 100% yet. There is still some juxtaposition in the model output that things will remain pretty mild, but that is becoming more of a lesser of an option, really, with most of them. I say 70% of the ensembles going to a pretty chilly scenario there through the first couple of weeks of December. Looking at the MGO, now I thought I'd just show you the Martin-Julian oscillation. This is an index of the stratospheric troposphere in the tropics and air circulation there. And you might think, what the hell has this got to do with the UK? Well, actually, when the MGO is closer to the central line here, it indicates that the Martin-Julian oscillation is weaker. The further right you go, the stronger the Martin-Julian oscillation get. Now, if it was strong here, especially in phases 4 and 5, that would go towards perhaps producing more of a westerly flow across the UK. So the fact that it is quite weak is also a signal that just makes you think, potentially something colder into the second week of December as well. And this just shows us again that the atmosphere, potentially stratospherically as well, is just juxtaposed towards some colder conditions. Now, if we look at the 00Z, now I'm going to start off with the least cold output. So I'll start off with the icon model. Now, this scenario here would still be pretty chilly, actually. What we see is through the early part of next week, so through Monday, Tuesday, it's largely high pressure there through the 1st of December. And broadly speaking, for the 2nd of December as well. But we see this front here just starting to nibble into Scotland. So I think through Tuesday, potentially pretty unsettled there for Scotland with some showers or perhaps even longer spells of rain. It isn't really until Wednesday there that we start to see something colder. Initially northwesterly flow, that could bring some sleet over 650 meters across northern parts of the country. Nothing significant. But watch as we go through the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. We start to set up an Omega Ridge. Now, this is different to the other model output, and I'll show you the GFS and the GEM in a moment here. But what this icon model does is produce more of a northerly wind. And what this actually does is produce less colder air across the UK, because this area of low pressure here has got more of a stronger self-circulation to it. And what that means is it's starting to weaken out, or just starting to make the influence of this cold and northerly wind a bit lighter in the low. So this is actually quite not as cold as an output here, but still nonetheless it is pretty chilly with these strong winds of this low. We feel pretty raw actually, with temperatures probably about 5-6 degrees by day, and that obviously would be quite cold and cold enough potentially for some snow over higher parts of the UK. So that scenario there is not completely out of the question. It is still chilly, and there are still opportunities going forward because it is still very blocked. We've got this Omega Ridge here setting up in the Atlantic, and when it's Omega, it just shows us that it's pretty blocked, and it's quite good at fighting off the zonal flow. Now, looking at the GEM model, which is probably the best output from this morning if you want some colder weather, what this does is begin to set up that northwesterly wind, which I talked about earlier. This is Wednesday, produces some wintry showers potentially. And then what we see here is a very effective trough disruption. Now, when these areas of low pressure dive southwards like this, that is often a sign that something colder is on its way, because what that does is help to produce an easterly wind. Now, we call this trough disruption, but on this one, it's more of a general dive southwards, and it does help there to produce, you can see here, that trough pushing southwards there, and the general movement southwards of the low. And there is probably some trough disruption here to the east. You can see here that trough there starts to feed some of its energy eastwards, and over the upper levels of the atmosphere. This is where this conversation takes place between this low and that low, and pushes it eastwards. And what this help does is to strengthen the cool pool across Eastern Europe. So there is quite a strong cool pool going on here now over Eastern Scandinavia into Siberia. And so on the GEM, it would really produce some pretty cold easterly winds, and that would again produce the risk of some snow flurries, I think, through next weekend, through the 6th, 7th, And then for the 7th and 8th or into the following week of December, that second week of December, that would produce, I think, some snow flurries, especially across eastern parts of the country. Nothing major, but a centimetre or two in places, especially across that higher ground. And as we run the model on, we continue to see cold easterly winds there. This is by the end of the run. So this is the 7th, 8th of December. As far as we can go, this is 10 days out. This is pretty cold there. Low pressure over central southern Europe. That could produce some major snow to the Alps, some really heavy snow there. But for us, a few snow flurries there and some pretty cold temperatures. For December, that's pretty good, given how Decembers have been in the last 9 years or so, maybe bar 2017 at some points. Now looking at the GFS, this is also pretty interesting there. Again, it's the same story this weekend. Chilly with some frost in places. Then through the early part of next week, watch that low swinging from the west, produce initially rain to Scotland on Tuesday, but by Wednesday it starts to dive further southwards. Most of us seeing some heavy rain on Wednesday, potentially some strong winds too. And this particular run here does produce that trough disruption, that area of low pressure diving southwards. It then starts to produce more of a significant feature there over the southern Europe region, so the Med and Italy, and this just helps to produce a very subtle easterly wind. And this one is more subtle with the easterly flow, but nonetheless, it is an easterly flow, and it is pretty cold. If we look at the upper air temperatures with this for the weekend of the 6th, 7th, as you can see, yes, the upper air temperatures are pretty chilly there, between -3 and -8, and that would be enough at this time of the year to produce some, I think, wintry showers, maybe, to describe it. If the upper air temperatures were a bit colder, I would go with snow showers, but that would still have a wintry, sleety flavour on lower levels. And then again, through the 7th, 8th of December, we see further ailments there of low pressure, just spinning in, just, sliding down on this area of low pressure here, sliding down on the axis of it, of this high pressure here. So this is going through the Monday, the 7th of December. Watch that there, slides southwards, engages and becomes cut off here to the south. And that again produces this cold easterly wind. And that is a more significant easterly wind. And if we look at the upper air temperatures on this, they would be pretty cold there. Across the UK, and as I say, the potential there for some sleet, perhaps even snow across the high ground. So to summarise then, there is a lot of output this morning from the computer models. I just leave it with the NO because I think that describes the scenario quite nicely there. A good chance of some colder conditions there. As you can see, there are a cluster of ensembles going negative, but also there are some still in the positive or neutral category. So to say, the circulation and then the flow that we've seen in December isn't yet 100% resolved in the output. But again, given that the MGO brief, looking at that again, is looking pretty weak, and in the wintertime MGO becomes more significant of a factor, that is, I think, indicating the potential for some quite chilly conditions into December. And as I say again, not 100% certain, but certainly I think watch the forecast, especially as we go through next week. It could be that it does turn pretty cold, especially on the east coast, with the risk of some sleety showers, maybe some snow over high ground in the north. So thanks very much for tuning in. I hope that gives you a bit more of an insight into how things are looking. And I apologise for the quality of this video. It isn't about the screen quality, it's about the quality of the forecasting and the information you get from this video as well. Hopefully soon we'll be able to start doing proper screen recordings and give you more information, especially if we do get some snow. So thanks very much for tuning in.